It's Miss C with VWHSR. Today we're going to be talking about 1-point perspective a little bit. Some basic exercises in learning how to do this. We're doing it because some of our students are going to need it for a project that's coming up. They're only going to need a little bit of 1-point perspective. So things that you're going to need for this. Piece of paper. We have one that's big and divided into 4 sections because we got 4 little exercises for you. You will also need a straight edge. When I say a straight edge, a ruler works, but I'm going to be using just a strip of magnet. Anything that is straight works for this. You generally don't need a whole ton of room. I've encouraged a lot of kids to use the edge of their portfolio. Now, what is 1-point perspective? So in your first section or into some notebook, put 1-point perspective. 1-point perspective is a type of linear perspective. Linear is spelled like line, but there's an AR on the end. Linear perspective. And what it is the most technical version of showing depth that you can do in art. Now, what is depth? Depth is that illusion of forward and back. Some stuff is closer to you, some things are further away. There's lots of ways to show depth. In fact, our project is going to have a couple different versions. But this one, again, is the most technical. When I say the most technical, it is not difficult. However, you do have to follow the steps very carefully. And if you skip a step, you're going to be pretty obviously incorrect somewhere. So just trust me when I say don't do it. All right. So 1-point perspective is a type of linear perspective. Whenever I say 1 point, I mean 1 point. There is 2-point perspective and 3-point perspective and multi-point perspective. For the sake of simplicity, we're just looking at 1-point perspective today. All right, to start, the first thing that you draw with any linear perspective at all, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, multi-point, whatever, you have to draw the horizon line. The horizon line is a horizontal line. We know because horizon and horizontal are the same base word, horizon. They may or may not be related. I don't know. I don't know the etymology of that word, but it would be really cool. So we're going to start by drawing a line just across our picture plane. That is the area that we have to draw in. I'm going to just draw this line across. And we're going to go ahead and label this. This is the horizon line. The horizon line is the line that separates the ground and the sky. Horizon line, the line that separates the ground and the sky. The horizon line can be down low, it can be up high, and what it's going to depend on is your face, because this is also sometimes called the eye line. That said, because it is an optical illusion and it always appears to be level with your eyeballs. If you go outside into a big grassy field, there's no trees for miles, and you just look, the horizon will feel like it's level with your eyes, which means if you tilt your head down, it's going to feel like it's higher, and if you tilt your head up, it's going to feel like it's lower. Use that to your advantage whenever figuring out your drawings, children. All right, so now that we've drawn the horizon line, step 2 is to add our vanishing point. Now, for today, I'm going to bring it over here. But what you got to know is the vanishing point lives on the horizon line. It does not live above. It does not live below. It stays on the line. It can be in the middle. It can be on the right. It can be on the left. It can even be way over here off of our picture plane. But it has to be on this line. So today I'm just going to put mine over here. I suggest you do the same. We're going to go ahead and label it vanishing point. The point at which parallel lines appear to converge or hit one another. The point at which parallel lines appear to converge, because this is an optical illusion. The lines that are parallel to one another that it's talking about are the ones that go from close to you to further away. They're the ones that are receding in space. Those are parallel to one another. Say like the sides of a building, they're parallel. But in this optical illusion, they appear to meet at this point in the back on the horizon line. So now that we have our horizon line, now that we have our vanishing point, the temptation that you're going to have is to leave one of them off. You're going to go, I know that later on all of this is going to be covered and I'm not going to need it. And then you're just not going to draw it because you don't want to have to come back and erase it. Don't do that. You will have so many regrets. It is so very, very easy to go, okay, my vanishing point is going to be about here, so I'm going to draw all of those later steps like to that vanishing point, and then they will all go all over the place because you didn't draw it in. If you think that you might not need it later, it is a-okay to draw it lightly. But if you just leave it off, then something will go wrong later. Don't tempt fate, all right? Now, whenever we're learning geometric forms, I told you there's several different ways to draw a cube, but probably the easiest one that we know is this right here. We draw a square, we draw an offset square, and then we attach the corners with diagonals. Doing 1 point perspective is actually really, really similar to this. It just goes in slightly a different order, and some of the steps have a little bit more detail to them. So we're going to follow these same steps. I'm going to have this version over here and one version over here in the 1 point perspective, just so you can kind of see the differences between the two. So step 1, draw the front side of your shape. Remember, this will always be a shape that is flat-sided towards you, so it's going to be facing you directly. I'm going to draw 2 squares over here. I'm going to draw one above my horizon line and one below my horizon line. So we've got our square above, our square below. That is the front side of our shape. Next, instead of drawing the shape in the back the way that we do with this one, we're actually going to draw the diagonals next. Bam, 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 and bam. But in 1 point perspective, those diagonals, those parallel lines, they're the things converging at our vanishing point. So we're going to draw from each of our corners towards our vanishing point. We're going to do that on all of these spots. Now, one of the temptations that kiddos have is they say, okay, so this one has this vanishing point and this one's going to have a vanishing point over here. No. If it's all one picture, there's only one vanishing point, okay? Again, we're doing 1 point perspective. If there's a second point over here, suddenly we're out of 1 point perspective. We're headed in towards like multi-point perspective. It becomes a big old mess. Don't do it. So use your straight edge, and it is very obvious to tell when you're not using your straight edge. Yeah. You just want to draw lines towards your vanishing point. So here are all of my lines that go backwards in space, and they have a very special name. So just like we have the horizon line, just like we have a vanishing point, these guys are called receding lines, kind of like a receding hairline, if that helps you remember. So recede. I don't know how to spell receding.
D-I-N-G? Maybe.
Receding lines. Receding lines. Spell that better. Google it for yourselves, okay? Receding lines. They are lines that go backwards in space. So our diagonal lines are called receding lines. They go backwards in space. They're the lines that go from close to us to further away. If you're ever not sure if something is a receding line or if it's just the diagonal edge of something, try and figure out if that optical illusion is making it look like it's going to the vanishing point. If it's going to the vanishing point, it's probably a receding line. Not 100% because art is weird, but probably. All right, now from there, we have one more thing to do to finish off our little cube over here. We need to draw the back side of the shape. Over here, same thing. We still need to draw the back side of the shape. Now, in here, we have these 4 diagonals to attach it to. Over here, we have these 4 diagonals to attach it to. The thing to double check with yourself is that you're always starting in the corner where the receding line comes from, and you're going back to that corner, and look at which line you're actually going to, because there's a lot of lines here and it's very easy to accidentally go to the wrong one. Like right here, I need to go from this receding line down. And if you're not paying attention, you might come to the one at the bottom, but the one we need to go to before this line turns is actually this second to last one right here. I'm gonna draw my line. It matches this one right here. This line turns at a 90 degree until it hits this receding line. It hits right about where that line actually goes on top of it. From there, we're gonna go down or across, one down, blah, 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 blah. And one side of my cube is actually just barely being overlapped by the line that's there. Let's do this one. I can come across like so. Following between these two receding lines, I'm gonna have to come all the way down to this receding line, bump over until it hits this receding line, and then come up like that. Now, I'm having to do this kind of from the side, so mine might be a little bit wobbly weird, but here's how you can double check yourself. On straight edge shapes like this, where all of your sides are straight, all you need to do is double check that they're parallel. Is this top side parallel to this top side? Is this side parallel to this one? Is the bottom parallel? Double check all of that, and you should make sure, and it should make sure for yourself that it's the shape that it needs to be. So I had to go back and fix this square a little bit. It was wonky weird. And then I realized that this one's kind of tilting down a little bit, so I had to make that happen. All right, so from here, I have all of the structure of my shape. I no longer need to add any more lines. However, this doesn't really look like a cube because we have a whole bunch of extra stuff going off everywhere. So here's how I'm gonna make that more clean. First off, my receding lines. So once I go backwards in space, past the edge of my shape, I no longer need them. So they're the first things that I'm gonna get rid of. All of these lines that go past the back corner of my shape, like this. Now I'm gonna keep them down here just so that they still exist, but I'm gonna show you what I'm doing up here. Now, the next place that I know is solid is gonna be my front shape that I made. This first one that I did in black. That's the front side of my shape, and assuming that my shape is going to be a solid piece, this is not gonna be see-through. So I can get rid of that. Now, I should be able to see which sides I'm still gonna be keeping. Trick, it's gonna be whatever sides are closer to my vanishing point. So I'm going to have some this way, and I'm gonna have some this way. Those two sides closer to my vanishing point, so they're gonna exist. Now I just need to make them solid. So I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna erase some of these lines, and I'm gonna erase this little line right there. Bam! Now I have a cube floating in space. It really is that easy. Again, think about this regular cube that you've drawn before to help you remember the steps. Just remember that there's a little bit of shifty business to it. All right, so we're gonna come back and do slightly more complex shapes in a little bit, but draw this one and draw cubes until you're a little bit more comfortable, and then come back to the rest of this video.